Let's talk about Stan Lee. Stan Lee died on November 12, 2018. He never saw No Way Home. He never saw Peter Parker erase himself from the world's memory and move into a small apartment alone. He never saw the version of his character that Brand New Day is about to give us. But here's the thing. He described it. He described it in interviews for 60 years. He built it into the character from the very beginning. Stan Lee created a hero designed to lose, designed to carry things, designed to never get a clean win. And Brand New Day is the most honest version of that design the MCU has ever attempted. The warning wasn't hidden. Stan Lee said it out loud over and over again. For 6 decades, interviewers asked Stan Lee why Spider-Man connected with people, why a teenager in a costume worked so well, and Lee gave the same answer every time, in different words, but always the same idea. He told the Chicago Tribune that Spider-Man was his favorite creation because he's the one who's most like me. Nothing ever turns out 100% okay. He's got a lot of problems, and he does things wrong. Nothing ever turns out 100% okay. That's the design document for Peter Parker. Not the spider bite, not the web shooters, not the costume. The fact that things go wrong. Lee built him that way deliberately. In 1962, every other superhero was a power fantasy, a person who could handle everything. Lee looked at that and decided to create the opposite, a superhero who couldn't handle everything, who had homework due, who was late for a date, who saved the city and came home to an eviction notice. The first Spider-Man story is only 11 pages. In those 11 pages, Peter gets his powers, decides to use them for personal gain, becomes a celebrity performer, lets a thief escape because it's not his problem, and watches that same thief kill his uncle. The whole origin is a story about selfishness and the cost of it. And the final panel, the one with the line that became the foundation of the character, it's not dialogue. It's not Uncle Ben speaking. It's a caption. It's the narrator's voice. It's Stan Lee describing what Peter learned. And a lean, silent figure slowly fades into the gathering darkness, aware at last that in this world, with great power comes great responsibility. That image. A lean, silent figure fading into darkness. Alone. Aware. That's not a triumphant superhero shot. That's a teenager walking away from his uncle's body, knowing he could have stopped it and didn't. The first image of Spider-Man Stan Lee left us with is a figure disappearing alone into the dark. That's what Brand New Day looks like in 2026. That's what Tom Holland's Peter Parker is in that movie. Still fading into the gathering darkness, still alone, still aware. Stan Lee made deliberate choices about Peter Parker's life, and he was clear about why. The costume was designed so that anybody reading Spider-Man anywhere in the world could imagine they were under the costume. The mask removes specificity. The mask means the character can belong to anyone. But what makes Peter Parker specifically himself isn't the mask. It's the life under it, the problems that don't go away, the relationships that cost him something, the wins that immediately create new losses. Stan Lee understood that Spider-Man's universality came not from the powers, but from the weight. Every other superhero in 1962 was aspirational in a pure way. Superman is what humans could become. Batman is what wealth and discipline can accomplish. Peter Parker represents something different. He represents the experience of being capable, genuinely capable of doing more than most people can, and still finding that it's not enough. The rent is still due. The girl still doesn't know you're the hero. The uncle is still dead. No matter what you do after. The MCU's version of Peter Parker has been the most faithful to Stan Lee's design of any live-action Spider-Man. Not because of the powers, because of the accumulation of loss. Tobey Maguire's Peter had a complete arc. He got Mary Jane. He kept his friends. The sacrifices were real, but the ending was livable. Andrew Garfield's Peter lost Gwen, and that loss defined everything. But it was one devastating thing rather than a systematic stripping away. Tom Holland's Peter has lost everything, not in one moment. Piece by piece, Tony Stark gone, May gone, MJ erased, Ned erased, identity erased, biology mutating. Still in the suit, still going. Stan Lee's exact words on what the character was about circle back to the same place. Peter Parker has problems. Things go wrong. The wins cost something. That's what makes him real. That's what makes him human. That's what makes him Spider-Man. Not just a guy in a costume who happens to be good at fighting. In Into the Spider-Verse, the Stan Lee cameo is a costume shop. Miles Morales buys a Spider-Man suit and asks if he can return it if it doesn't fit. Lee looks at him and says, "It always fits." Eventually, the camera pans to a no refund sign. It's a joke. It's also the clearest statement of what Lee believed Spider-Man was as an idea. The suit always fits. Eventually, it doesn't fit at first. It fits badly for a long time. It costs you things to make it fit. But eventually, if you keep wearing it, it becomes who you are. No refunds. You don't get to give it back. Tom Holland's Peter Parker has been wearing the suit for 9 years. He tried to give it back by erasing himself from the world, but he's still out there. Brand New Day is him still out there, still in the suit, still going. Biology breaking down, hunted by Punisher, nobody knows his name, and still out there. Stan Lee knew this version of Peter Parker was inevitable. Not this specific film, not these specific plot points, but this place. A Peter Parker who has nothing left and keeps going anyway. Lee said he created Peter Parker to be the hero who had problems and did things wrong and still kept going, because that's what real people had to do. Lee didn't write Spider-Man to be aspirational in the Superman sense. He wrote Spider-Man to be true, to reflect what it actually felt like to try to do the right thing in a world that didn't reward you for it. The line from Amazing Fantasy number 15 isn't just about responsibility. Read the whole sentence. Aware at last that in this world, with great power must also come great responsibility. The word must carries the weight, not comes. Must. It's not a natural consequence. It's a moral imperative. Something that has to be chosen. Something Peter has to choose again every single time he puts on the suit. In a world that doesn't know his name and can't give him anything back, Stan Lee built a character who was always going to end up here, who was always going to reach the point where everything was gone and the suit was all that was left, who was always going to keep going anyway, not because of external reward, but because of what he understood about himself and the world. The lean, silent figure fading into the gathering darkness, alone, aware. Brand New Day is that figure, years later, still out there. Stan Lee warned us what would happen to Tom Holland's Spider-Man. He wrote it in the final caption of the first Spider-Man story ever published. He just didn't know it would take 64 years for the movies to catch up. Go back to what Lee said about the specific design decision that made Spider-Man different. He described it in a 1998 NPR interview. Before Marvel, if a superhero saw a 12-foot-tall monster with purple skin and 8 arms breathing fire, the character would say something like, "There's a monster from another world. I better catch him before he destroys the city." Lee said if one of his Marvel characters saw the same monster, Spider-Man would say, "Who's the nut in the Halloween getup?" The joke is the point. The irreverence is the point. Spider-Man doesn't arrive at superhero moments with solemnity. He arrives the way a person arrives. Uncertain, sarcastic, a little scared, making a joke. Because what else do you do? Tom Holland's Peter Parker is the purest movie expression of that quality. He quips constantly. He talks too much under pressure. He told Tony Stark about his powers in a rambling story about a lady with groceries. He introduced himself to Thanos' forces with a, "Hello, my name is Spider-Man." He's not performing confidence. He's filling silence with words because the alternative is too real. That's Stan Lee's Peter Parker, the kid who has the power and still has all the human anxiety that power doesn't fix. Stan Lee also made a very specific decision in the original story that gets overlooked. Peter Parker didn't become Spider-Man to be a hero. He became Spider-Man to make money. He was going to be a celebrity performer. He was using the powers for himself. The heroism came after the failure. The responsibility came after the cost. Lee built the origin backwards from every other superhero origin. He didn't start with a tragedy that created a hero. He started with a kid who had the power and made the selfish choice, and then had to live with what that cost. The heroism is the response to that guilt, not the response to the power. That's also Brand New Day. Peter didn't become this version of Spider-Man because he woke up one day wanting to be a lone hero. He became this because he made a choice in No Way Home to protect the people he loved. And the cost of that choice was everything. The Brand New Day. Peter isn't a hero in the classic mold. He's a kid who made a selfish choice once, watched his uncle die for it, then spent years trying to be better than that, and ended up alone anyway. The suit is what's left when everything else is gone. Stan Lee gave us that character in 1962. He described that character in interviews for 6 decades. He showed up in every Spider-Man film in a cameo, usually playing a regular person who encounters Spider-Man. Because that was the whole point. Spider-Man belongs to ordinary people. The costume means anyone can be underneath it. The mask means the person under it could be anyone who understood that having something that others don't is not a privilege. It's a debt. That's what Peter Parker is in Brand New Day. Paying the debt. No reward, no recognition, no memory, just the suit, and the responsibility, and the city in the dark. Stan Lee built exactly this. He warned us the whole time. And now, 64 years later, we're finally seeing the full picture of what he created. A hero who loses, a hero who carries things, a hero who never gets a clean win, and keeps going anyway. Because that's what real people do. That's Spider-Man. That's Stan Lee's greatest creation. That's Brand New Day.